Hello, in this video we're going to actually create and run a Java program. If you can get to the end of this video and you can actually do this and make it work, then you can really give yourself a pat on the back, because this is really something. To create your first hello world type computer program is really a great thing. It's really an important and wonderful step, and once you can do that, you're well on your way. So there are two ways I can create a Java project here. You may or may not have this, because different versions of Eclipse do sort of change a bit, but here it gives me an option that I can just click to create a Java project here in the area that we call the Package Explorer. So I can just click that, create a Java project, but I'm going to do it a different way that's more standard across different versions of Eclipse. I'm going to go to the File menu, and I'm going to go to New Java Project. If you can't see Java Project here, then go to Other. And when you click Other, you'll have a whole list of different types of project, and you just have to go to Java and select Java Project. So it doesn't matter, just do one of these, but your goal is to create a new Java project. Okay, so let's go back and do it in a way that is most common, at least as far as I'm concerned. I'll go to the File menu, go to New Java Project, and we get this screen here. We need to give the project a name. Now usually that can be pretty much anything you like. This is just an Eclipse thing, it's not a Java thing. There's no real rules about it. What I have found is that occasionally people run into problems if they have a space or some weird characters in a project name. Weird characters, I suppose, from the point of view of the kind of standard Latin alphabet. So what I'll do is I'll call this project Hello World. I'm giving it a capital H, capital W, but that's not important. It's just for readability. And I won't put any spaces in there, just to be on the safe side. So we fill that in. Another thing to pay attention to is the version of Java that we're creating this project for. So here it says use an execution environment JRE, and that's set to version 12 of Java. But that's not what I'm using. I'm using version 11. So I'm going to select version 11 here. This says here the default compiler compliance level for the current workspace is 12. The new project will use a project specific compiler compliance level of 11. That's just kind of for information. It's not really important for what we're doing here. The compiler compliance level is actually, it's just talking about what version it expects your Java code to be. So it's saying that in this case, because I've selected version 11 of Java, we're going to be writing Java in a Java 11 type of style. Java is backwards compatible, so if you write code for version 8, it will still usually work in, it should work, I think, always probably, in version 10 or version 12. Okay, so you just need to make sure here that you have Java version 11 selected. And for most of what we're doing here, even version 9 would be all right. Version 8 of Java would be all right for most of it. And version 10 would probably be all right, maybe for the entire course. So you could even use version 10. You could use even version 8 for most of what we're doing here. Okay. All right. So we give the project a name. We make sure we've got Java Standard Edition version 11 selected, and if not, you can try playing around with these, but hopefully this will all go pretty smoothly and you can just use that there. Okay, click Next. So on this screen, the only option that we need to pay attention to is we've got this option to create module-info.java. Java modules are a fairly new addition to Java. They were added a few versions ago, and we're going to look at them later in the course, but to start with we're not going to use them because they will only complicate things further. So I'm going to untick that. That's the only change that I'm going to make. Then I'm going to click Finish. Hopefully you'll get a project generated now, and you can expand it and look into it. You will have included in the project, it will say JRE system library, should be version 11 here. That's just a load of stuff. It's a load of basic Java stuff. It's a load of sort of code that lets you build upon it to do things in Java, basically. And we've got this source folder, and the source folder is where our code actually goes. Now I'm going to select the kind of root folder there, Hello World. I'm going to right click it, and I'm going to go to New Class. And I'm going to go back and explain this more in the next video. For now, we're just going to do it. So we need to create a new class in our project. I need to give it a name, and the name that I'm going to give it, I'm going to call it app. Now, that can be what you want, but I would suggest using app to start with, just for consistency with these videos. It should have an upper class first name, and the rest of the letters in it should be lowercase, unless you've got multiple words, in which case each word starts with an uppercase letter. But we'll be seeing more of that later. For now, just call it app, A-P-P. The package, we don't have to fill this in, but if we don't fill it in, we might get a warning. Packages, again, we'll be talking about those later on. They're just a way of organizing Java code, kind of like a folder, really. So for the moment, I just need to give the package some name. I might just use my initials, JWP. You can use yours. Now, the thing about the package is the letters in it should be lowercase. So I would say for the moment, just use your initials or whatever. You could even call it hello, something like that. Maybe I'll call it hello. But they should be lowercase, and for the moment, don't put any symbols or anything like that in there, and we'll talk more about packages later on in the course. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tick this box to create a public static void main string array args. Now, of course, that looks incomprehensible to you if you're new to Java. That's fine, but tick that box. That's really important. So we've added a name for the class that begins with an uppercase first letter. We've given a package a name, and that's all lowercase letters, no spaces or anything. And I've ticked that I want to create a public static void main, and the other options I've just left them as they are. And I click finish. And then we've got our Java program. And in fact, I'll leave it here in this video, and we'll actually make this do something, I think, in the next video. Now, I know that this has a recipe book feel. I know that you don't understand what you're doing unless you're already a bit familiar with Java. You won't understand this. That's fine. It's normal. It won't be like that for the entire course, but we just need to get started. Okay, so until next time, happy coding. Hello. In this video, we are actually going to run a program. Okay, so so far we've created what we call a class, and the class is a text file with the extension .java. It's in a particular location in our project. You should have something that looks kind of like this. Hello, there is the package, and in the package is a class called, in this case, app.java. I'm going to add some code in this class here, and then we're going to be able to run it. So here it says to do auto-generated method stub. So it's telling me that this is automatically generated, and I can replace this thing here with some code. So this is actually a comment. It starts with 2 slashes. If you don't have that, don't worry. The really important thing is that you need to write some code, and you need to write it in the correct place between these 2 brackets. We'll talk a little bit about the structure of this class, I think, in the next video. But for now, notice it says at the top it's got package and your package name. Then we've got public class and the name of the class, which is app. We've got 2 curly brackets. Now within those two curly brackets, we've got this public static void main string array args. We'll be talking about this. I know it's all horribly complicated looking at the moment. And within those two brackets here, that's where we need to write our own code. I'm going to get rid of this comment. It's not doing anything, so I'll just delete it. And in there, I'm going to write sysout, and I'm going to hold down on a Mac Command key, and probably on Windows a Control key, and I'm going to press the space bar. Actually, what am I saying? On a Mac, it's also Control. Hold down the Control key and press the space bar. And what should happen is it auto-completes to this. It says system.out.println, and there's a couple of round brackets and a semicolon. If for some reason autocomplete is not working in your Eclipse, you can maybe Google autocomplete Eclipse. Try and find out why it's not working. Hopefully it should work. It should be Control and spacebar, I think, pretty much on any operating system. So what that did, it simply takes a shortcut phrase, sysout, sysout, and it changes it into a bit of actual legitimate Java code. So that's just a way of avoiding typing this out, because we'll probably have to type this a lot, and it's just quicker to type sysout. But if you can be bothered, if you have the patience, you can just type system.out.println, two round brackets and then a semicolon. Now I'm going to click inside these two round brackets and put in two speech marks, and in fact if I type one speech mark, Eclipse automatically puts in the other one for me. Now inside those two speech marks I'm going to type hello world, and this is just text, and I can put what I like, but you have to be aware that there are some special characters, some kinds of punctuation, for example like the / character, which if you type that in here it won't work. You just need some ordinary text in there, and if you want you can have a full stop or period as you call it in America, and or an exclamation mark or whatever. Okay, that'll do the trick. Now I want to make sure that that is saved, so I'm going to go up to the top left here and click this save all button, then it sort of goes grey. Okay, so I've got my program and it's saved. There are several different ways you can run it. One way is make sure the file is selected, app.java, and click this green run button. Another way is to right click app.java and go to run as, hopefully you can see that, Java application. Let's just scroll down a bit here. So run as Java application. And I get that menu by right clicking it. But what I'm going to do is just select app.java and click the green run button in the top left here. And if you do that, you should see some output at the bottom, and it should say hello world or whatever you've typed in those speech marks. If you don't see this console tab, you should see it when you run your program, and if you don't, in Window and Show View, you can click to make sure the console is actually showing. So that catches some people out, but if you just installed Eclipse, the console should be visible. So you see there's a bunch of tabs here, one of them's console, and that's where your program output appears. Okay, so if you try that, you should find that you can run the program by clicking that run button, and it should say hello world. If anything goes wrong, go over the video carefully, make sure you've done every step correctly. If you get any error messages, type them into Google or an internet search engine and just search for the error message and see what comes up, see what people suggest about how to fix the problem. Hopefully this will go smoothly, and when you've done that, you've run your first Java program. And I know you're going to be totally confused, and in the next video I think we'll talk a little bit about this program and what it is and how it works. Okay, so if you can actually get it to run, that's a major step forward. It's really, really fantastic. And it is normal at this stage to feel very confused. Expect to feel confused. That's normal. Okay, until next time, happy coding. Hello, in this and the next video, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we've actually created. And I'm not going to be able to explain all of it at the moment because there's just too much going on here for you to understand at this stage in the course. You will understand it later on. But for now, I just want to talk a little bit just to familiarize you a little bit with what's going on here, so you'll feel hopefully a little bit less confused. And if you've actually created your own program here and you've run it and it says hello world or whatever, then that's really a great achievement. So you should be proud of that. That's a fantastic start. Okay, so let's take a look at what Eclipse has generated in this video. So if you click your project and you right click it, so I should say click the project name in the Package Explorer here, and then right click it and go to Properties. And if on this dialog, if you've got Resource selected on the top left here, then where it says Location, that will show you where your project is located. And of course it's located in whatever folder you set the workspace to be. So actually let's take a look at that on the disk. So we'll go to it, and my workspace folder is this. I called it workspace, and you don't have to, but I did. And in there we've got a folder for the project, and it's called Hello World. It's named after the project. We click on that, and in there we've got a bin and a source folder. Now you don't have to have these folders in the Java project. So if you have decided for some reason to follow this using, for example, Visual Studio Code, and you've looked up how to compile and run Java programs on the command line, then maybe you haven't created these. It is good practice to create them, bin and source, but they're not a part of the Java language. They're more like a sort of tradition or standard in Java. The bin folder is where Eclipse puts your compiled programs. So when you take text files that contain text written in a programming language and you turn them into a program, some software does that, and the software is in your Java development kit. That process of turning text files into an actual runnable program that your computer understands is called building the program or compiling the program. These are technically different, but for the moment we'll just talk about compiling the program. So you're taking text files, turning them into an actual computer program, and that stuff gets put in the bin folder. And you can look at it if you want, and you'll see an app.class file in there. That's what's actually being run when you run your program. Now in the source folder here, that's where we put our source code. The source code is the stuff that we're writing. And in there there's a folder called Hello. The reason I've got a folder called Hello is because I called my package Hello. When I created this app.java class, which is what this is, this app.java is a class, I put it in a package called Hello. So there's a folder called Hello. Don't worry about these terms at the moment. I'm just beginning to use them so you get a feeling of familiarity with them, but you don't need to know exactly what they are at the moment. It's okay. So if we go into the Hello folder, there's my app.java text file. That's what we've actually written, and that's this text file here. Okay, so what we've got is we've got a project located in the workspace. The project has one package in it called Hello, so that's in its own folder, and inside that folder is a text file, app.java, and a text file has Java code in it that defines a class, and that app.java gets turned into a class file, which is located in our bin folder. So it's worth having a look at that in Windows Explorer or Mac Finder or whatever you're using, your File Explorer. just have a look at this just to feel a bit more familiar with it. In the next video, we'll talk a little bit about the code that we've actually written. And all of this stuff, I'm just giving you a very rough overview. You don't have to really understand what I'm saying in any depth. I'm just beginning to familiarize you with it, but we will be going over it a lot more in the rest of the course. Okay, so until next time, happy coding. Hello, in this video we're going to talk a little bit about the code that we've actually created. Now, there are a lot of concepts packed into this short piece of code. It's very cryptic looking, even though it's a basic sort of what we call a hello world type of program. You won't understand all of these concepts until you've gone through more of the course. So what I want to do here is just run through it quickly so you have a vague idea about it, just to try to make you feel a little bit less confused. It's not important to remember or memorize what I'm saying here, because my entire object is really not to teach you stuff at this point, but to reduce the confusion, more like. Okay, so let's just talk about this a little bit. So Java code is organized into packages. We create text files with the extension .java, and we group them together in what we call packages. We created one package called hello, and that's why this app.java file starts with the statement package hello. It finishes in a semicolon, and that's very important. Many programming languages use a semicolon to end a statement, and a statement is it's like a sentence in English. It's a little bit of computer code that does one particular thing, and it ends in a semicolon. Following that, we've got a definition of a class. A class is like the basic unit of Java code. You can have multiple classes in one text file, but usually, most of the time, you create one class per text file in Java. And usually, the class has to have the same name as the file that it's in. So that's why we've got a class here called app, and it's in a file called app.java. Capitalization is also very important. Class has to have an uppercase first letter, and so does the text file that it's in. You can't have spaces or weird punctuation in it or anything like that. So we've got a class here, and curly brackets define what we call the scope of the class. They define the contents of the class. Within the class, we've got a single subroutine. That's a block of code that contains a bunch of statements that actually accomplish something. Now, this is a subroutine called main, and in Java, subroutines, sort of collections of lines of code, are called methods. So what we have here is a main method, and the main method is where your Java program starts. It's where it starts running from. This says string array args. We'll be looking at all of this stuff later, so don't worry about it at the moment. But this would allow us to pass in information from the command line if we are running this program on the command line. It's a collection of bits of text essentially, but it doesn't matter for the moment. So we've got this main method, this main subroutine, and the scope of that is again defined by two curly brackets. So there's a method called main, and then we've got some content of it that goes between two curly brackets, and all of that is nested inside this class definition. And what is the actual content of our main method here? Well, it's one single statement, and this says system.out.println. Print in programming terminology means to display on the console. So when we talk about printing text, and we don't mean anything to do with an actual printer, we just mean display it on the console, print it. So we've printed hello world on the console down here. I don't know if you can see that down here. There we go. We printed that text. The text that we wanted to print is enclosed in double quotes here. So this is just normal, ordinary, human readable text. The only unusual thing about it is that there are some things you can't put in there because they have a special meaning in Java. So for the moment, just stick to ordinary text, but you can have spaces and things in, because between these double quotes, it's just ordinary text. And that, because this is a statement, this bit here, it finishes with a semicolon. And system.out.println, println, it says, it's a mouthful, and we'll look at, you'll understand more about what that is later on, but just understand for the moment that this is how we display text on the console in a Java program. That's all it is. This actual text is called an argument to this method, println. So that's some terminology for you, and maybe it gives you a very vague idea about what this program does, or maybe not. Maybe you just feel even more confused than to start with. Either way, that's okay. That's all right. What we're going to be doing in the next few videos, and for quite a while probably, is just adding more text here. We're going to add more lines in so that we can do more stuff, and we're going to look at the real basics, the real fundamentals, the nuts and bolts of computer programming, and we're going to gradually build up your skill level, and hopefully you'll gradually feel less confused. It is really important to type this out though. You have to type stuff, because just watching the video won't be enough. Okay, so until next time, happy coding.